if you're responsible for keeping a network or, well, any organization secure, you are probably drowning in data, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just logs anymore. It's telemetry, metrics, alerts, events pouring in from thousands of devices every single second. The fundamental problem today isn't just collecting it all, it's making sense of it.
Yeah.
How do you possibly cut through that fire hose of noise to find the one critical event that actually signals a genuine attack?
Yeah, it really requires a strategic and automated approach. Modern SIEM systems, security incident and event management, they're built on these precise analytical rules to solve exactly that problem. So today we're taking a deep dive into the underlying blueprint, you could say, of these advanced security architectures, the core concepts that dictate how data is managed, prioritized, and crucially acted upon automatically.
Okay, and our sources today, they give us a pretty fascinating look behind the curtain. We've analyzed the operational guidelines, the technical prerequisites, essentially what's needed to configure these leading SIEM and security orchestration platforms.
Yeah. Right. We're looking at things based on the FCP FortiSIEM 7.2 Analyst exam material. It gives a good window into those core functions.
Exactly. We're not here to study for a test, obviously. We're here to understand the actual technical controls, the levers and knobs that let a system go from just, okay, here's another log entry to, hold on, this is an active, critical incident that needs immediate mitigation.
We're trying to move beyond the jargon and really look at 5 essential mechanisms. These kind of map the entire life cycle of a security event, right from its initial detection as just a data point, all the way to its hopefully automated neutralization.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We're starting right at the beginning.
Yeah.
The crucial task of turning, say, dozens of disconnected log entries into a single, cohesive threat indicator. So picture this scenario. It's pretty common. You've got a single employee, let's call her Sarah. She's trying to log in, keeps failing. Maybe she's traveling, mistyped her password, who knows?
Right. Happens all the time.
But the logs show she failed on her mobile device, then maybe 5 minutes later on her laptop, and then 10 minutes after that, someone tries using her credentials on a restricted server. How does the system avoid just flagging 3 separate, low-priority, isolated events? How does it connect those dots, across different systems to say, wait a minute, this is one high-priority incident?
Okay, this is exactly where the aggregation setting is absolutely fundamental. The strategic goal of aggregation is really minimizing alert fatigue.
Right. Too many alerts, you ignore them all.
Precisely. If you alert every single time an event happens, you guarantee analysts will eventually miss the important stuff.
So how does aggregation actually enforce that? How does it work?
Well, aggregation tells the analytics engine to essentially ignore the individual events for a moment. Instead, it groups them. It looks for critical shared attributes, like in your example, the user ID, Sarah's ID, or maybe the source IP address. And it does this regardless of which device type actually produced the log. Then it tracks the count of those related events, but only within a specific defined time window.
So that makes the time window really critical, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Because if the window is too wide, say 24 hours, you might just lump together a user's normal password mistakes from the whole day to a false positive.
Exactly.
But if it's too tight, like 30 seconds, you could easily miss a slower, distributed kind of attack pattern.
You got it. The configuration of that time window and the specific attributes you choose to group by, that's really where the expertise comes in. The rule only triggers the final high-priority alert when the count of those aggregated failures crosses whatever threshold you've set.
Okay.
So it effectively transforms all that isolated noise into a single, contextualized security incident.
Okay, so once we've successfully aggregated and counted maybe dozens or even hundreds of what look like true incidents, the next challenge is triage, right? Even the best security system might generate thousands of legitimate alerts overnight. If a security analyst walks into the SOC at 8 a.m., they just don't have time to process everything. How does the architecture instantly give them, the top 5 most dangerous list or the top 10?
Yeah, that's where we leverage the ranking function. The strategic problem that ranking solves is all about focused resource allocation. You want your analysts putting their eyes on the events with the highest occurrence count, or maybe the highest potential impact, immediately, first things first.
But wait, if the analyst can already just sort the table by severity or frequency, why do we need a specific ranking function? What's the strategic difference?
Good question. It's the difference between just sorting a massive list and performing, surgical restriction. Sorting gives you a list of, say, 10,000 items, but they're all still there in order. The ranking function is a specific technique designed to restrict that result set. So first, yeah, it sorts events or grouped results by some defined metric like frequency or severity score. But then, crucially, it limits the output to only the top N records. Top 5, top 10, whatever you configure.
Got it. So if I set the ranking function to top 10, the system literally filters out the other 9,990 less frequent or less severe incidents automatically. Ensures the analyst is only looking at the absolute most immediate priorities.
Exactly right. It drives immediate action by focusing analysis squarely on the highest occurrence threats, saves valuable time, minimizes that mental fatigue of just wading through pages of lower-tier alerts.
Right. So we've identified the event through aggregation. We've prioritized it using ranking. Now here's where it gets really critical, the response.
Speed matters.
Yeah, that time delay between detection and mitigation is often where the most damage gets done. So what mechanism takes over? What allows the system to automatically, grab the wheel, execute a remediation script, or send a command to an external system, say, blocking a malicious IP address right on the firewall?
Okay, the core mechanism for that kind of automatic intervention is the automation policy. This is what really moves the security posture from just passive detection to active, real-time security orchestration, automation, and response, SOR.
So what's the real difference between an automation policy and, say, just setting up an email alert to the security team?
Well, an automation policy is the built-in trigger mechanism for actual operational tasks. When a critical incident threshold is met, the policy fires. And it isn't just notifying a human, it is actively executing predefined machine-driven actions.
Like what?
Like running a remediation script, maybe quarantining an affected host automatically, or sending an API command directly to external network devices like a FortiGate to instantly block malicious traffic. It minimizes that manual gap, that human delay, and provides potentially instantaneous damage control.
Wow. So the moment the system confirms the threat is real, ranks it highly, the automation policy just kicks in and metaphorically locks the door, all without needing a person to intervene right away. That's a huge shift in security efficiency.
It really is. It's about reacting at machine speed.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about context and the system's ability to learn. Modern defense can't just hunt for known bad signatures anymore, right? It has to know when you, the user, are behaving abnormally. That's the whole goal of user and entity behavior analytics, or UEB.
Exactly. Baseline and anomaly detection.
So if an administrator is trying to set up a UEB module, what are the two fundamental prerequisites they absolutely must configure to allow the system to even begin establishing a baseline of what normal user activity looks like?
Right. UEB is pretty much worthless without context, without that baseline. So you need two key things. First, the machine learning configuration tasks themselves must be explicitly enabled specifically for user activity. That's kind of the engine.
Okay, switch it on.
Yeah, but the second, and arguably even more critical prerequisite, is the data needed to train that engine. The system absolutely must have a sufficient amount of historical normalized event logs, NEL, available that relate to user activity.
Hold on, you used the acronym NEL there. For listeners who aren't maybe knee-deep in SIEM architecture day-to-day, what exactly is normalization, and why is that specific format so essential here?
Yeah, that's a really key point. Normalization basically means taking logs from maybe 50 different vendors, a Windows server, a Linux firewall, a Cisco switch, some cloud service logs that all speak different languages, essentially.
Right, they all format things differently.
Exactly. Normalization forces them all into a standard unified data structure, a common language. The system can't effectively compare your activity across all those disparate sources unless the data is first standardized into these normalized event logs, the NEL.
Okay, so the historical NEL data is like the system's institutional memory. The engine uses those standardized records of past activity, like you logging in from your home office at 7 a.m. every day, accessing 3 specific servers to establish that baseline of normal.
Precisely.
Then, if it suddenly sees you logging in from, I don't know, Vietnam at 3 a.m. and trying to access completely different servers, it flags that as an anomaly against the learned baseline.
That's exactly the idea. Without that foundation of historical, quality, and importantly, normalized data, the machine learning engine has no reference point. It has no idea what normal looks like for you or for any entity, and the whole premise of anomaly detection just collapses.
Okay, finally, let's talk about enriching the analysis. Internal data is great, baseline is great, but security threats are constantly evolving, right? New malicious IPs pop up, new sensitive usernames might get compromised, new attack vectors emerge literally hourly.
The landscape changes constantly. Yep.
So the system needs to be smarter than just what it sees internally. How do analysts efficiently feed this external threat intelligence, this outside knowledge, into the analytics engine for real-time correlation?
Yeah, good point. To incorporate that fresh outside intelligence, analysts typically rely on two complementary data structures. The first, and probably the most straightforward, are custom lookup tables.
Okay, I think I get those. They're basically just lists, right? Lists of things that are known bad or sensitive.
Pretty much. They're often static or semi-static lists used to import and store data that changes relatively slowly or stuff that you manually maintain. Think lists of known restricted IP addresses from a threat feed, maybe lists of privileged user accounts, or compromised domains provided by third-party intelligence services. These tables can then be quickly referenced in any correlation rule. Is this IP on the bad list? Is this user on the admin list?
Okay, that makes sense for known bads or known importance. But what about intelligence that needs to be updated almost constantly? Like if a new zero-day IP address is identified right now, we need that integrated instantly, not after someone updates a list tomorrow.
Right. For that more dynamic need, you use dynamic nested queries. Now, this is quite a bit more sophisticated than a static lookup table.
How so?
Nested queries allow the system to actually reference and pull data from other queries in real time. So, for instance, query A might be constantly running, maybe identifying new suspicious internal behaviors based on some complex logic. Query B, which might be your main detection rule, can then dynamically nest query A within its own logic. This ensures that the very latest findings from query A are instantly included in the live analysis being done by query B. It effectively maximizes the system's ability to incorporate fluid intelligence, whether it's internal or external findings formatted as a query result.
Okay, so that's the real strategic advantage then.
Huh.
Combining the stable, curated lists you get from lookup tables with the fluid, real-time updates that can be delivered by these nested queries. It helps ensure the analysis is always based on the absolute freshest context possible.
Exactly. You get both stability and dynamism.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the operational blueprint of modern security analytics.